Hey, my name is Sierra Evans. Today I'm going to interview my papa, Rick O'Daniel, and my great-grandmother, Betty O'Daniel, about O'Daniel's Flower Shop. Let's go. What was the beginning of O'Daniel's Flower Shop?
Well, for me, I was 8 years old, and I was just a young guy, and my parents started a flower shop. And so when I would get out of school, I would come up to where they had started their flower shop and clean up the floor and take out the garbage and do some stuff like that. So that was what it was like for me. Just a lot of time coming downtown and working at my dad and mom's flower shop.
When did y'all move to 127 North Elm Street?
We moved. My parents opened the store in 1962, and in 1967 they moved the shop to 127 North Elm Street. And when they did, we had to move everything from one location to the other, and it just happened to be right across.
Do you remember about the move in 1967?
Well, the biggest thing I remember is that my uncle and my dad took this ice box right here apart, board by board, and they numbered them, and I was the one who carried it across the alley, and one put it back together over on the other side. So one would take it down and number it, and then I would carry it across the alley, and the other guy would put it up. And so we moved this ice box right here that's been in the business since 1962. We moved that one board at a time from one location to the other, and I walked it across the alley and they put it together. Is that light still on?
What else changes did y'all make?
Well, 5 years later, when we bought the store, when my dad bought the store, this room over here was a barber shop. And 5 years later, the barber shop moved out, and he decided he would make more display area. So he tore out the wall here that you see, and then remodeled this room in here, and made it into, expanded our flower shop almost double. So.
What changes did y'all make to handle the business?
Well, Valentine's Day is probably our busiest time of the year. So my dad, one Valentine's Day, the 13th, he decided that we should route the deliveries the night before. A few years later, I went to him and I said, what if we started making up the bouquets we sold the year before, like the week before, and got them into the coolers and everything, and held them real good, and then when people ordered them, we'd have them already made, and then we could get more out. And so our business quadrupled after that on Valentine's Day, and we were able to handle it a lot better and didn't have to turn out any phones or turn away any customers or any of that, all that kind of stuff, where he delivered.
Changes from the beginning of the flower shop.
Okay. Well, this back here used to be a garage, and Dad, he changed it all into a more useful area, and then he added a second floor, and it was, you know, it's used to store things and keep things up there where that you can walk up and down with them, and there's an office up there. And then as far as merchandise goes, probably one of the biggest things, I'll just highlight some of the biggest things, were like in the early 70s, he put in a big area of green plants, and they took off, and it's still there where he put it when he first brought it back. And the silk flowers, there didn't be a silk business, and so he got into the silk flowers, and that's one of the reasons he turned the barbershop into a retail part, was a place to put the silk flowers and all that. Later on, we got into these benches and picture frames and all those kind of things, and that that a lot of those sold later on, and it also kind of took away from the funeral flyers that we sent before that, where we stayed so busy making funeral flyers. The benches and stones and plaques and the different things like throws and willow tree angels and cherubs, all those things took away from the cut flyers that we used to send that took so many employees to make. So it kind of transformed our business a little bit, where that we did more selling and tagging rather than making and sending. So the fresh flyer end of it began to go down a little bit, and the gift shop part of it started going up a little bit. So it kind of works, you know, similar to that. So, and then in 1996, after my father passed away, probably one of the biggest things we did was add the computers. And the computers then allowed us to, as we was talking to somebody on the telephone, be able to tell whether or not they paid regularly or not. And it really helped us, our business, be a little more efficient on those people who didn't pay their bills and stuff like that. And we were able to look up their addresses and know who we were talking to right away. And it took us from having 2 bookkeepers to not having a bookkeeper, because the computers would pretty much do it all. So each time we took a step in a different direction, a lot of times it kept us from having employees, and that kept us a little more tied to the business. So it made it a little bit rougher as the owner, but it was more efficient as far as profit was concerned.
How has the internet affected the business?
The internet's made a big difference in the business. Facebook made a big difference in the business. I probably was a little bit slower getting into it. I was a little afraid of it because I didn't understand it. But once we had a website and all that, we started probably getting about 15 to 20% of our orders over the internet at night. So they would order off order off our website, and then it would be here in the morning when we would get here. And on holiday time, I would say by the time we got to the end of our business in 2017, we were probably doing at holiday time somewhere around 40 to 45% of our business was somehow connected to the internet or to Facebook or to something like that. So I think the internet is probably, if I were going to stay in business, that's probably where I would put most of my advertising dollars, is to make sure my internet service was where everybody could find it.
What is the experience have you received after closing the store?
Well, while we were closing the store, we had a lot of people come in, and a lot of people were very complimentary and sorry to see us go. But after we've closed the store, there's so many people that have come up to me at different places telling me how much we're missed, and how much they miss our shop, and how much they loved our shop, and how much they miss seeing us and things like that. And it's really been a humbling experience to realize that people, you know, that through a business you're able to touch that many people. It's really been nice. So it's been really good.
Have you had anybody interested in the flower shop?
Yes, we've had a couple of people that were interested. One couple was really interested. I think it ended up being a little more time than they wanted to sacrifice. They were really young, and I don't think they wanted to put that much time into it. If somebody was ever interested in starting a flower shop, this would be a wonderful place to start it, to start their shop. And the building is, you know, for lease or rent. And so if anybody wanted to rent the building, and I still have some merchandise left, if anybody wanted to start up, they could start it up right away. So there's a lot of positives still left here if somebody wanted to come in and do it. The only thing is that I would be able to sell anything that I have, except I don't want to sell my name. So unless somebody in the Old Daniel family was in it. I wanted to make sure too that my grandkids are growing up. Sierra's getting ready to graduate. I want to be a part of her plans for her spring, and Colton is gone to college, high school now, and he's playing baseball, and I didn't want to miss his baseball games. And I've got Piper and Finn. They live in Louisville, and as they get older, they're going to be more active in their schools and active in things they do. And I want to be able to drive up there and watch some of that. And two, you know, I'm 64 years old, and my father died at 65, and I just don't want to. I don't want to work here till I can't work anymore. So I want to live out some of my life enjoying some of those things and having a little more free time.
Above the flower shop.
Yeah, above the flower shop is an apartment, and it's a one-bedroom apartment, and it's been totally just remodeled, and it's beautiful up here, and everything in it's new, and it really looks good. When my dad bought this building, there was a lady living here, and she had been living here for years, and so he just continued to rent to her. And then when she moved out, another guy moved in that worked for us, and then after that, we just used it for storage for quite some time, and then we remodeled. A lady wanted to remodel it and live in it, and she did. And then after that, we had some problems with the roofs, and it ruined a lot of things in here, and so we ended up remodeling the whole thing, and it's brand new now. It's beautiful up here, and so it's for rent too.
So what made you and Daddy Bill to start your own business?
Daddy Bill worked for another flower shop, and that was his passion, that he would one day own his own business. So something came up at the shop where he worked that was not good for him, so he decided that maybe it was time to go ahead and start our own business. So that's when he decided to do it.
So what was your role in the business?
I was a bookkeeper. I took care of the customers. I made sure that the front of the store was always clean and presentable. And I was a salesperson, and that was about it. I did everything except design the flowers, and he did that.
So how did Daddy Bill teach Papa?
Papa more or less learned by just watching.
Watching?
Yeah, Bill would tell him different things, you know, that he needed to watch out for, and that he needed to be sure that he did this and that and something else. But he actually learned most of his learning by watching Daddy Bill.
Describe how Mother's Day and Valentine's Day all came to place.
When we opened the store in October of 1962, Mother's Day was already big, and so was Easter, but Valentine wasn't. And so we had an employee there that asked Bill if he could, he was the one that came in after school. He was going down to the college, and he just worked a couple hours, but one afternoon he asked Bill if he could put a design up in the refrigerator for Valentine. Maybe somebody would buy it. Well, they bought it immediately, and so each year, they kept growing. And then after we moved over on 2nd Street, bought that store over there, we began to add and add and add, and it became a very big holiday.
What is the story behind the green plants?
Bill was very close to his wholesalers, and he would go over there. He spent a lot of his time going over there and picking up what we needed. And so one time he went over there, and this wholesaler's name was Al Dobble, and he told him, he said, "Bill, you need to get green plants." He said, "They're the going thing right now." And so Bill said, "Well, I'll try it. I'll go." Al told him to try it through Mother's Day. And he said, "Okay, I'll try it." And so he did, and it was such a takeoff that he never gave them up. He kept them in the window from then on.
When was the first time y'all went to market?
We went to market in Indianapolis. Probably we went there before we ever opened the store, because the Shaws had asked us to go with them, and so we did, and we learned a lot. That was the first time I'd ever seen a wholesale flower market, and so I came back all excited, wanted to go ahead and open our own shop, and so it kind of took off from there.
Describe the market, the experience.
They showed people. It was a wonderful experience. Daddy Bill was on the board of directors, so he had to go. But they had it was in a big warehouse, and they had all kinds of flower, whatever you needed for flowers, and then they had people that would get up and show you different designs and all that kind of stuff. It was a real good experience. And then we didn't go back to market. Well, we went 3 or 4 times there, but we didn't go back to our market until after we after we bought the Home Folks and had the gift shop. And that's when we went and started buying for the gift shop. But we bought for both the flower shop and the gift shop.
Especially for open house and everything.
And open house came before that.
And did y'all buy from the market there?
Mm-hmm.
What was your intake of the computers of the store?
Well, Daddy Bill told Rick one day that he said, I want you to, this was in '96, this was the year that he had to leave. Anyway, he said, I want you to go to different places, look at the computers, see what you think. It's time we got computers in the store. And of course, I didn't think too much about it. I figured, that I could learn it. And of course, Bill said he didn't think he could ever learn it, but he would have. And when I realized, I didn't trust the computers at first, because I couldn't understand how they could keep all that information in there, the accounts, the payable, the receivable accounts, and all that. I didn't understand how that could work, but I finally did realize that is the way it worked, and and then after I got used to them, I loved them. I loved working on them, as far as the accounts and people coming in and looking up their account and all that kind of stuff. It was a lifesaver, because we'd already got way over our head as far as trying to keep records, other than with a computer.
What was your intake on the internet of the shop?
I'm very limited on what I do with that. I mean, I can find florists out of town, and that, of course, all entails the internet, and I can find all that, and what they're offering as far as specials, like the Teleflor, FTD specials, things like that. But I'm pretty limited on the internet.
Do you think that had a major change with sales too?
Oh, yeah.
Did people buy offline and everything? And
we had what you call an e-florist, and they would look on this. This was later on. This wasn't at first, and they would look on there and pick out what they wanted, and then they'd send us the order and put on there what they wanted and who it went to and all that. It made it so much easier. It was a real asset.
The meaning behind the carnations on Mother's Day.
Yeah. The red is for if your mother is living, you wear red. And if your mother is deceased, you wear white in memory of them.
What was your intake of the closing of the shop?
Well, Rick was doing, he was doing 2 full-time jobs, and he was wearing completely out. He couldn't do it anymore. And we talked about it for probably 5 years before he finally decided to do it. And, but he had to make a decision. Is either go with the flower shop or go with the church. And God said, you know, there's no doubt where I want you to go. So that's when he decided to close the flower shop and go with the church. But I was in complete agreement with it, because I could see what he was doing to himself every day. He was wearing himself out. And of course, when I got sick, then that took me out, and that was, I mean, when you keep taking people out that help you, you can't do it anymore. So that's where he was.
If Daddy Bill was still alive, what do you think he would say right now about his legacy?
He was a very humble man, so he'd never think he had a legacy. But evidently, people really admired him and Rick and the flower shop, and people were so gracious when we closed the flower shop. The many wonderful things they said, and it was unbelievable. We couldn't hardly believe it, you know, that they were so gracious. Talked about how they couldn't get flowers like that anywhere else, and people would never be able to get flowers like that, and how they just wouldn't buy flowers anymore because they couldn't get the type of flowers that they'd always got there. And a lot of people told us they'd never bought a flower anywhere else, and it was just wonderful. It was just absolutely wonderful the way people reacted.
And you think Daddy Bill he would be probably smiling in heaven the same way, filled with joy?
Yeah, he would. He would be happy with it. I mean, he was going to have to give it up anyway, because he was getting tired too. So he would have probably encouraged Rick to give it up sooner than he did. But he would have been in agreement with closing it.
What was your favorite, like, out of the whole thing, what was your favorite thing of the store?
Well, I loved people. I loved to sell. So, and I loved the people that as friends, you know. And so I told somebody one day that even though I was there all those years, I can't remember a time when I would come to the flower, get up to come to work, that I wasn't pleased to come to work. I loved it. And that's why God had a way of tapering me off when I got sick, because I couldn't go, so it made it easier for me to realize that I couldn't go anymore. And but I loved every day that I went there and worked. I loved the people, loved the flowers. I admired the beauty of them, and I was just happy.